How's it going? Today I'm going to be doing a little video I decided to make. I don't really know what made me want to do this. I just feel like talking about horror movies because it's been what I've been collecting mostly recently and been watching. I've been catching up on a lot of movies that I just didn't watch over time, or rewatching movies, like The Thing that I rewatched last night, the John Carpenter's 1982 Thing. And I re-fell in love with the movie to the point where I had to make a video talking about my favorite horror movies that I own. And a little spoiler, The Thing is one of them. Shocking, right? But that's definitely going to be talked about. So let's just hop right into it, and I'll get to number 10. So number 10 is a bit of a guilty pleasure, yet I still think it's a very well-made movie. It's another John Carpenter movie, and this is Christine. I think this is just one of the most underrated movies all around. Not just horror, all around. People just seem to brush over this. They always talk about The Thing, They Live, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, but they never mention Christine. And this to me is just like the little forgotten gem. And I just love everything about this movie. The characters, I love the car, I love the opening scene to this movie. Might be my favorite opening scene to any movie, period. You understand everything you need to know about this car without any dialogue. The car doesn't speak, obviously, unless it's using its radio voice, like Bumblebee and Transformers. But you get everything you need to know. The guy comes in, working in the factory, disrespects her as if it were a woman, and ash is all over her, and he gets killed. Just like the other guy who lifts up her skirt and gets his fingers crushed. Rich Evans was the one who pointed that out to me on Red Letter Media, and it kind of opened my eyes to a whole other side of this movie, especially that opening scene. So little credit there, where credit's due to Rich Evans. He mentioned that, and it's true. It's like she's got these female attributes as a car, and it's very interesting. And she's very tough. She doesn't like to be touched. Do you blame her? The way these guys at the factory mistreat her. Arnie as a character is really relatable, obviously, to a lot of people who went through high school. If you're an adult, we all had a little bit of Arnie in us, whether we were like him or not fully. If we dressed like him, probably not. Had his glasses, probably not. Dealt with the things he dealt with at school, maybe not. Get knives pulled on us in tech class, probably not. But you still understand with his everyday struggles, and you can still see why he's so upset when his parents won't let him buy a car and put it in the driveway. Arnie's family really pushes him to do a lot of stupid shit in this movie, and his best friend doesn't listen to him. But it is one of those classic stories of he gets the cool car, the car teaches him how to be cool, and he gets the hot girl, and he starts to not talk to his friend anymore, who was way cooler than him before, so he kind of drops him. And it's like a really interesting dynamic, and obviously in the end you have a little duel, a little face-off with him in the car, and he dies, and the car mourns him. Of course, we're left with that ending where we're not sure. They leave it up to the audience whether or not she's still alive, or it's just one last movement of like her medal. But obviously, Christine's still alive. And we don't need a sequel ever. Please never make a sequel to this. I hope nobody will ever sit there and think we need to make a Christine reboot or sequel. It's perfect the way it is. Alright, so let's get on to number 9 now. Number 9 is Scream 1. I have to hold up the Scream collection because I do not own the first Scream on its own. But Scream 1 is one of those movies that really fixed and saved horror for at least 20 years. I'm not a huge fan of the last 10 years of horror movies, but there was another good 20-year stretch after 1995-6 where we had good horror movies, and it wouldn't have happened without Scream. We got really tired as a society. I wasn't alive, so I say we, but society got tired of the same old slasher, with the same old plot. For Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those movies were doing the same thing every time. Scream comes along and does something completely different that nobody's ever seen, and it reinvigorated the horror genre. Everybody said it, but it's true. It really did. And I go back and watch this every Halloween. I have to. All the characters are hilarious in this movie, whether they're trying to be or not, but Jamie Kennedy always stands out as the character that I relate to most. He's like the film nerd, and he's got all these facts and how to survive a horror movie up his sleeve, and he's the character that we can all kind of identify with in the movie.
If you were the only suspect in a senseless bloodbath, would you be standing in the horror section?
Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs.
Stu is hilarious. He's been turned into a meme a million times over. And Billy's just a creep. You know from the beginning something's off with that guy. I always knew something was wrong, even when I was a kid and I didn't know the ending of the movie. I knew he was probably going to be evil in some capacity. I think Neve Campbell gets overshined in her own movie. She's supposed to be the main character, yet I watch this and I'm more interested in the villains. I'm more interested in all the other side characters. It's not to say she doesn't get better as the franchise goes on, but as a standalone film, the first movie, I'm not too interested in Sydney as a character. I just love watching what everybody is doing in the town when they find out, that there's a murderer on the loose. And the teacher, we got the Fonz, and he's like overacting times a million for no reason. And I love that he's acting like he's in a 1940s horror movie, and it's absolutely hilarious.
You make me so sick. Your entire havoc-inducing, thieving, whoring generation disgusts me.
It's got some good kills too, but the problem with this franchise, and even the first movie, is they only use really knives. It's a lot of stabbing kills, which gets kind of tiresome and boring after a while. Works for this first movie, so that's fine, but that does get tiresome. I don't really have too much more to say. I love this movie. It's got a lot of quotable scenes. And like I said, I watch it every year. So I had to put this on my top 10 list simply just for that alone. And I just appreciate it for what it is. It's a nice popcorn thriller. Alright, number 8 is American Psycho, which is getting remade for some reason. And I have no idea who decided that was a good idea, but that is just awful. Just awful. You've got the best casting possible. Christian Bale was born to play Patrick Bateman. I like him in a lot of films, but this to me still, to this day, his best performance, and I don't think a lot of people would argue that. It's just, that opening monologue of him talking still stuck in my head forever. It probably always will be.
My name is Patrick Bateman. I'm 27 years old.
And there's a lot of scenes in this that are unintentionally funny, yet it's supposed to be funny. They play it straight, but he plays it so well straight that it becomes memorable for its funny bits, like him in the bathroom washing his gloves after Lewis touches him.
I want you.
It's perfect. So many scenes in this I can just sit there and think about all day long when they're all showing each other their cards.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my God.
And any scene with him and Paul Allen, which aren't too many scenes, but those are my favorite scenes in the movie, especially them at dinner where they're just shooting the shit. I just love it. I'm going to keep saying it. I love it. This movie to me is just a perfect horror comedy. And that ending scene when he's telling his lawyer that he did it is one of the most scary scenes to me ever, because that definitely happens where I don't find this funny anymore. I'm leaving now. And it's like, yeah, that probably happens where people just start unloading all of their real life problems. Like, I murdered this guy, I did all this, and then their lawyer's like, okay, I gotta go.
I killed Paul Allen. And I liked it.
Because they're rich and they all live in this whirlwind and they don't live by the same rules that we do, and they can get away with shit that we can't. So I find that part of this movie very interesting, how they all just brush off that he's basically admitted to all this stuff in the end, and it leaves you wondering, did any of this actually happen or not? It's a lot of horror movies. They do a very good job leaving you wondering if you were just tripping ballsack or if any of that actually happened. Alright, next up we've got Alien from 1979, Ridley Scott. Now, if I was going to put my favorite Alien, it probably would be the second one. I prefer the action of the second one, but it's not a horror movie in my opinion. It's more of a horror action, really leans more towards the action side of things. So I would struggle to sit here and say, yeah, that's a horror movie, when it's not really. So I picked the first one for my top list here of horror movies. I think this is just one of the best suspense films of all time, especially the first time you see this. I was unfortunately probably a little too young, but then I rewatched it and forgot a lot of it, so I was able to have that experience a second time, thankfully, and appreciate the film. and the characters, and some of the most amazing shots ever. Just think, before this, Star Wars and 2001 are really the only movies that looked this good. The ship shots in this still stand the test of time. They didn't go back and change them like George Lucas, so you got the original view of the film in this. And it still holds up extremely well. Even the guy in the suit as the alien, it looks goofy, but again, it's like a throwback to those 1940s and 50s horror movies, so I'm okay with that completely. It also ushered in a whole new wave of science fiction films that all felt like this. Isolated in space with nothing but you and a crew, and then you all get picked off one by one. This is the prime example of that, and I can just think of so many countless other examples of movies in space where shit just starts to fall apart. Maybe not because of an alien, but things start to fall apart and you're isolated on your own. You know, I think of Life, Gravity come to mind. This was the one where I always come back to this, the first one. And it's also got cool little lore in there, like the space jockeys, which they went and kind of fucked up with the Prometheus film and Alien Covenant. But this movie, it gave you the idea of, you know, there's other aliens out there that have dealt with these very things, the face huggers, and they've used them in their own way. I'm pretty sure Ridley Scott said they used them as like against another army of people. So it's like a deep lore that we don't even know, but it keeps you interested. The less you know, the more you're kind of left wondering and more left interested. And this is one of those movies. Face hugger scene at the table is one of the most traumatizing scenes ever if you're a kid. And it still holds up as one of the best visual effects scenes ever, and films, period. So if you want a really good treat to yourself, you want to go watch an old movie that looks amazing, go watch Alien. This, to me, is the definitive horror movie I gotta watch every Halloween. I can't put it at one, because just a few of them are just a little bit ahead of them and surpass them over time, which is a good thing. But for 1931, it's a damn near perfect film. And the lack of music in this, to me, adds to the scariness and creepiness of everything. The characters are so well cast in this. Frankenstein is just so well done. Like, his creation, his scene there, it's alive, I know what it's like to be God. That is one of the best scenes in film history. It's been redone a million times. We've all seen it redone.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
We've all seen this movie in one way or another. Whether you've seen the movie or you've seen parodies, or you kind of get the idea of what's going on in this film. I think everybody needs to see this at least once. It doesn't have, you know, the action that a lot of people would look for in today's film, where it's got like a big scene at the end. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes, not even an hour and 10, and that's all you really need. You don't need a 3-hour movie for Frankenstein. You know, you need an hour and 20 minutes, and some of them are upwards of an hour and 40. I think Ghost of Frankenstein's an hour and 40 minutes. A lot of these older movies, they just knew their runtime, and it was a different time period. People didn't sit in the theater for 3 hours. Boris Karloff, perfectly cast as Frankenstein. He's the best to this day. Sorry, I should say Frankenstein's monster, even though over time it kind of just turned into Frankenstein. You can thank Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein for stuff like that. But the Frankenstein monster, perfectly cast in this. They reused a lot of the actors from other films. Lon Chaney Jr. played the Frankenstein monster. Bela Lugosi played the Frankenstein monster. And Glenn Strange is the one that we all know really is the most iconic look for Frankenstein as monster as time's gone on. But to me, Boris Karloff, the first and the best, probably always will be. And this, to me, just the perfect every Halloween type film. And it's not too scary to show kids or anything, so you can get your children into this early, and you can still enjoy this as a 90-year-old man. It's got forever rewatchability factor. Alright, we've got number 4 here, Halloween from 1978. This is, I've changed my opinion on this movie a lot over the years. I don't love this movie. I don't think it's the best horror movie ever made, but it gives me everything I need in a horror movie on Halloween, and it gives me, even around Christmas time or whenever you want to watch a horror movie, this gives me everything I need. You're in, you're out, it's very quick-paced, the characters don't drag on, you don't got a lot of stupid scenes where people are doing a lot of boring shit. Like in Friday the 13th, you watch her make her coffee and stuff. It's like, you don't have any of that in this. It just cuts to the shit. You get the kills, you get the gore for the most part, and you get a pretty interesting story for a pretty fast-paced and kind of lack of dialogue film. It gives you a lot. And the visuals are what stand out, obviously, with Michael Myers. I think 5 or 6 people played him in this movie, so it's interesting to see that when you rewatch the movie. You see how different he is in size and stature. His mask gets pulled off in this. This is one of the only times you see him unmasked. After this, they had a very weird thing about keeping Michael Myers' mask on. Unlike Friday the 13th with Jason, they showed his face in pretty much every movie. That wasn't the case with Michael. They've only showed his face a few times. I think Halloween 5? Was it 5? Where he shows his face partially? Might be 4. One of those. I think it's 5.
Let me.
And I can't think of any other time he shows his face. Even in prison in Halloween 5 at the end, he's got his mask on, so it doesn't really... Oh, no, sorry, is that Halloween 6? Yeah, it's the end of Halloween 6 when he's in prison. Doesn't really make sense, does it? But doesn't matter, because it's Halloween. John Carpenter, to me, is one of the best directors ever. You can tell I've got a lot of his movies on this list, and I just keep talking about him because he's just amazing. And this, again, perfect little horror movie where you don't really got to watch something with your brain on. You can just turn this on, turn your brain off, eat some snacks, get high, and enjoy it. This is really tough, because I watched this yesterday, and this jumped up my list so far. I wouldn't have even talked about this yesterday. I'd seen the thing once in my life before yesterday, which is a mistake, and I don't know how that even managed to happen in my life. But I rewatched it, and I completely fell in love with this movie, and I now understand why everybody talks about this like it's the best thing ever made, because it is one of the best horror movies ever made, where everything is paced so right, and everything is paced so perfectly. You've got no fat on the bone. You've got no fat. You've got no side characters, no love stories, none of these things to drag you away from the main threat, which is the thing. It always stays on topic. And there's maybe 2 scenes with exposition, and one of them doesn't even have dialogue, it's just a computer. So you can't complain about anything in this movie time-wise. If you're going to be one of those people that wants to watch a movie that goes by really fast, this is it. This is one of the best-paced movies I've ever seen in my life. Every scene has a purpose. Every character has a purpose. The acting is fucking damn near... It's damn near perfect. It's damn near perfect. Kurt Russell is perfectly cast as MacReady. I always loved Keith David as well, and John Carpenter clearly likes to work with him. A lot of scenes in this movie had me on the edge of my seat. That doesn't happen very often. And that jump scare scene where they're checking the blood truly scared me to the point where I jumped. It's not happened to me in 2 or 3 years, maybe longer than that, but I actually jumped out of my seat.
We'll do you last.
And I was scared for the rest of the scene. I didn't see it coming at all, because they said, we'll do yours last. And they play it as that way, so you figure it's going to be him, right? But you get that jump scare, and holy fuck, that's one of the most perfect jump scares in film history. It truly scared me. And that whole dog scene at the beginning, I love animals, so that dog scene, wow, that's hard to watch, isn't it? The visual effects look so good. Seeing the dog tongues come out and looking like a flower, it looks so good. That whole scene, it's just visual effect perfection. I love this movie. Everything about it. I really can't complain about something in this movie. There's just a few others that I have just slight bit ahead of this because of, like I said, nostalgic tie, or to me they're just slightly better. Number 3, They Live. This is questionable if it's on a horror list, to be honest, but I looked it up and it said horror, so I'm doing it because to me we're living in a They Live society where a lot of the stuff we're dealing with in everyday life is They Live. They put all these things out there for you to consume and do this and breed and all blah blah blah, and it's like a subliminal thing, and I'm not sure it's quite to this point where we've got alien people controlling our society. Maybe we do, I don't know, but I think that there's more than meets the eye. More than meets the eye. Sorry to be a Transformers guy there, but I think there's more to it than that. And in this case, with this movie, Roddy Piper gets these glasses and he starts to see the world for what it really is, and he hates it, because wouldn't you? If you really got to see what it was really like, you had all these alien dudes running shit, and he's homeless, and he starts out the movie pro-America, and just keep working, and you're gonna, meet your day where you catch your break. And Keith David right off the hop is like, no, I'm gonna keep it on a fancy floor and fucking cars. And then he starts to open his eyes. The movie goes along, because Keith David kind of does that for him. After he goes to the church and he gets his pair of glasses, shit changes. And we follow him on this glory path. To me, it's the most perfect movie until the last 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. Everything after the watch scene and the teleporting, kind of check out. But the first hour of this movie, it's about as damn good as it's gonna get. And again, John Carpenter, man, I just love this guy. I can't talk about this without talking about how great Roddy Piper is. The alleyway fight scene's one of my favorite fight scenes in film history.
Oh, you dirty motherfucker!
And I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, but I'm all out of bubblegum. Might be one of the most badass lines in film history.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I just love this movie. I could rewatch it forever, and I'm gonna probably rewatch it in the next few weeks. I just feel like I need to. It's just like, this is like Sophie's Choice, picking my #1 horror movie of all time for my list, for my film list of Blu-rays and DVDs. Exorcist is the movie that was like it was the forbidden fruit when I was a child. There was not too many movies that my parents were like, yeah, you can't, we're just not watching that. I watched Terminator when I was 4 or 5 years old, RoboCop, like they're pretty lenient household in terms of watching films. But this was like a complete no-no. I remember playing that scary maze game, and my dad walked in and he's like, oh, that's The Exorcist. And I instantly was like fascinated. I needed to look it up and learn everything I needed to know about that. And I asked him, can I please watch this? I need to watch this. And no, you're not going to be able to sleep. And I found it online. I don't exactly know how I found the movie, because it was only 2008 or 9. And it was like a shitty quality that I watched it in. And I didn't sleep for days. It was at my cousin's house, she's deaf. So you're not getting much comfort from that. And I was up for days. I couldn't sleep. Just thinking of Pazuzu and some little creepy demons stealing my soul from me while I'm playing with a Ouija board. Captain Howdy.
Captain Howdy said no.
Captain who?
Captain Howdy.
Who's Captain Howdy?
I just love that this is from the mom's perspective, Ellen Burstyn. She is one of the best actresses I have ever seen, just based off this one performance alone. You get to watch a mother who goes from unbelieving to confused, scared, distraught, every single emotion she goes through, because just from a normal perspective, you wouldn't want to believe that your daughter or son or child is possessed by a demon. It doesn't make sense. You want to believe any other thing as the possibility before that. They take her on these scary tests. Back in the 70s, all these machines are just completely terrifying. Max von Sydow, guy, is like 40 years old in this movie, and they've got him in this old age makeup. And as a kid, I thought he was just an old man. And then I saw him in The Force Awakens, and I was like, isn't that the guy from The Exorcist? And then I went home, and I was like, they had him in makeup. I had no idea. And then I went and watched the behind the scenes after that, and I realized this dude was in makeup out in the desert. And to have makeup look that good out in the daylight in 1973? It's mind-blowing. Like, this movie is so ahead of its time in every way. And, obviously now you tell people, go watch it. It's the scariest horror movie ever. People laugh a lot because they watch a lot of stupid shit now, like The Conjuring and stuff like It Chapter 2, where it's just a bunch of scary shit, where sounds are loud and things are thrown at the camera.
Good boy.
It's ridiculous. This is a real horror movie where you watch a little girl fall apart and her mom not know what to do because she's completely helpless, and it's just incredible stuff.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
And #1. This, it's unquestionable for me. The Shining's my favorite horror movie ever, I guess. now that I lay it out here and I think about it. I rewatched this twice. I've seen it 3 times. And the second time I rewatched this, I got stuck in a trance of I could not move. It was almost like the movie pulled me in, and it was 3 hours straight, 2.5 hours, however long this movie. I think it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. And it pulled me in to the point where when the movie ended, I was almost depressed. And I've never really, I felt that way before, I guess. But in terms of feeling that way about this, I was completely surprised. The first time I saw this, it felt like it dragged a little bit. I didn't love the movie. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was the best horror movie ever or anything. I didn't even think it was worthy of that top 5, 10 list of any kind. But then I rewatched it, and I let it marinate on me. And I love everything about this, man. I think it's just the most perfect movie. Everything about this has purpose. And you want to talk about every scene mattering and every single thing having thought put behind it. Stanley Kubrick does that. There's things in the background that you rewatch in the 10th time in his movies you still don't notice, and you're like, that's been there the whole time? He does that. He's one of those directors where every single placement has a purpose. I just think the casting in this is incredible as well. You know, I can't simply imagine anybody but Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson. Perfect casting, and Scatman Crothers is hamming it up. I love his character. The dude comes all the way back just to get killed. Imagine going through all of that. That winter storm, dude could feel it was coming, goes all the way back just to get murdered. Jack Nicholson all around. I love watching him deteriorate from a normal guy. He's never normal. That's the thing. He seems like a normal guy, but he's not really ever normal. He's creepy from the beginning, and he just gets creepier as the movie goes along.
Never do anything to hurt you. Never.
And you see him fall apart completely, and you know it's coming because they talk about the caretaker falling apart, and he becomes exactly what the caretaker was. And that's sort of what I am so fascinated about with this movie. This has so many theories and possibilities. Nobody has any idea what's going on in this still to this day. This movie's 45 years old, and we still have no clue what's going on. We can only assume and make up our own theories. I've seen so many wacky theories that make absolutely no sense. Some where people think that he's like a pedophilic father that does stuff to Danny. I don't even like to think of that because it completely ruins the movie for me. Yeah, but I do like that there's so many different perspectives, though. That's what a horror movie is to me. You know, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where you've got so many different possibilities of what's going on, and in the movie it leaves you with that. It doesn't give you a concrete answer at the end. It gives you these ideas, and then it leaves you with it. That's what it should be like. The Thing also ends on that cliffhanger I should have mentioned, where we don't know if the Thing survives or not. The same thing with the Shining. We don't know if Jack was always part of this, or if he just became part of it. His spirit formed as he dies, or if he had always been the caretaker like Grady says.
You've always been the caretaker.
We don't know. We can only assume. And that's why this movie's incredible to me. Because I sit there, and every time, the 3 times I've rewatched it, I have a different perspective and view on it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I got to talk about all these amazing horror movies that I love. And I think next I'm going to do Christmas movies. I'll do top 5 to 10 Christmas movies. How's that? So I hope you have a good day, time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.